Let's start on the Parsha, and this is Parsha Pinchas. Pinchas just came out of killing Cosby and Zimri, putting the end to the plague, right? 24,000 people. 24,000 people died. The plague stopped when he killed one of the leaders of Ruvain, the leader of Ruvain, who was sleeping with a foreign woman. And we understand that Bilam and Balak got together at the end of this. It's filled in later on that they're the ones who sent down the women to Am Yisrael, both Moabite women and Midianite women, which is why the Moabites just sent their women down to seduce the Israelite men, and it worked for a number of them. And it was connected to Avodah Zarah, right, to idol worship, because the men started, in order to be with these women, part of the episode was serving idols. That's idols and illicit relationships were very mixed in to one another as part of the idol worship, which puts you by the way a wider perspective of not only obviously it's forbidden because you shouldn't worship other gods, but there's this whole other morality that's amoral behavior that's wrapped up inside of it as well. So the Kutzker Rebbe asks, what was the keynote that he's called a kanoi, a radical, someone who's jealous for Hashem, right? That's Pinchas is called that. There's two questions that always came out of last week's parsha that's going into this week's parsha. They're kind of like overflowing. That one, why did Moshe Rabbeinu do anything about the situation, right? And why is what was Pinchas's whole thing? He has this push to just knock off a member of Am Yisrael, and it saves everybody. And it's called Kinet Hashem, right? He's jealous for Hashem. He's jealous because he wants to do the right thing in Hashem's eyes. And he gets the kahuna. He becomes a Kohen because of it. He's the grandson of Aaron Cohen, and he was left out of the lineage, right? So he gets put back in. So the Kutzker Rebbe says the following, and I'll paraphrase the first part because it's a little longer. And he says essentially that the bureaucracy of Moshe Rabbeinu was the Beit Din very rarely ever killed anybody. We learned that in the Gemara already, that if the Beit Din killed more than one person in 90 years, I believe it says, that is considered bloody Beit Din. So the Beit Din were always trying to find a way around killing people. Even though this is a public act, and an act which was completely, definitely death penalty level stuff going on. So Pinchas said, listen, if we keep going down this route, the plague is going to keep on going. So he went and he killed Cosby and Zimri for this, Zimri, and he executed him. The Beit Din was trying to find ways to not execute him. That was stage one, right? So Pinchas sort of broke through the bureaucracy of the Beit Din. And it said that Pinchas came from Eidat Yisrael. He's part of the Kahal, part of the community. He was within the ranks. He knew what was going on. He was a learned guy. That answers the first one. But Moshe Rabbeinu, they worked differently, different personalities. And then the Kutzker Rebbe says that Pinchas understood that this sin that Zimri was doing. It says betocham, right? That the word betocham is within. When it's talking about the action itself, was within the kahal, meaning within the community. It wasn't just Zimri doing it. When Zimri was doing this action, it was as if the kahal, the community, was doing this action. And so, therefore, Pinchas said, listen, when we have an action like this is a community-wide action. It affects everybody. And therefore, Hashem is teaching us, Pinchas understood, that every action we do has an effect on Am Yisrael, and thus the whole entire world. And in order to save Am Yisrael, I have to have kinat Hashem. I have to be jealous for Hashem. I have to really, really be a warrior for Kodesh Baruch Hu, until he went out and did it. And he saved Am Yisrael because he recognized the nature of the sin itself, and therefore every sin. And we're going to now slide into the beginning of the Rambam, is in a sense a level of avodah zarah, of idol worship. Because when we say I'm going to do something, and it's not by accident, I'm going to maliciously refuse to do things. And I'm not talking about here, there, derabbanan, but actually one of the 613 principles. We're acting in defiance of Hashem's will. We're basically It's as if we're recognizing another power. In a sense, what's the other power? The ego. My own ego is as powerful as Hashem, and that's a form of idol worship. I worship my own interests over the interests of what Hashem's will is in this creation. So with that being said, that's this week's parsha Pinchas. The Pinchas really was about anti-avodah zarah, anti-acting against Hashem's will. So now we're going to move into Yesodei Torah, and I want to continue. You can feel free to jump in and ask questions. There's parts of this we've gone over before, we dipped in, dipped out, but we never really kind of learned, I believe, in order, the way it should be learned. And I'm going to read the Hebrew. You have English in front of you. I don't always like English translations, but at least gives you a basic gist of what's going on in the Hebrew, and we can go from there. We can share a screen if you want, if that makes it easier. Let me just do that, actually. If this, I'll share screen. There it is. So it says Yesod HaYesodot Amud V'Hachamot Leida Shesh Matsui Rishon. This is the beginning of all of Mishnah Torah, not kind of an introduction. It's Rambam's massive halachic compendium, very well organized, and he starts all the halachot, all the Jewish laws started off with a 4-chapter set of principles and foundations of the Torah. So Yesod HaYesodot Amud Hachamot Leida Shesham Matsui Rishon. Wahu Mamsi Kol Nimsa. Chol Nimsaim Mishamayim Ha'aretz Mabashim Benehem Lo Nimsu Ela Amitat Himatzo. Okay. The translation is below. I'm going to translate it the way I feel it should be translated. Which is the foundation of foundations and pillar of wisdom is to know that there is here's his first being, right? Mitsui Rishon, or first cause. And he Mamsi Kol Nimsim, and from him everything is found. And from him caused all beings to come in, all in the play. It's actually present tense, right? So it's who Mamsi Kol Nimsa, and from him all is found. From his existence, I didn't go further into that. From his existence, all finds its existence. And all that is found from the heaven and earth and everything between them only exists because of the truth of his existence, of the reality of his existence. If it arises on if it comes to your thoughts, to your knowledge, if you believe that he doesn't exist, then nothing else would exist either. But if you say none of what we see would exist, he would still exist. He doesn't cease to exist because of our lack of existence, if that makes sense. Right? Meaning he's the cause and we're the result, so to speak. Right? So if the result isn't there, the cause is still there. If the cause is not there, then the result is not there either. That's simple. It's a simple philosophical logic. That all that exists, all of creation needs him, but he doesn't need any one of them. The truth of his existence, or his being, is not like the truth of any other. Here's his individual being, right? Of any other person, any other thing, any other part of creation. Okay, that's the first three halachot. Now let's go back and try to break this apart. Okay, the Rambam's treatise here, the Rambam's beginning of the Mishnah Torah is the foundation of monotheism as we understand it to be. It's the actual principles behind monotheism. Why it's very important to learn it, and it's very powerful to go through each one of these things. So, and we'll try to take our time on each one because I think it's in the world we live in today with moral relativism. I really believe moral relativism is another form of avodah zarah. It's another form of idol worship, right? Because idol worship really means there's a lot of different powers in the world. There's a lot of different truths in the world. And what the Torah says is only one truth. It's the truth of God Himself and the instruction manual He gives over. That's the reality. And if one doesn't believe in that, there's an idol worship going on. Because then I've inserted, and we'll get to see what's going on here. So what the Rambam does, you can plug in a lot of the moral relativism that we experience nowadays. Everybody says you have your truth, I have my truth. There's an element to that, right? I have my own truth, my own principles, my own way of doing things, my own pathway in life. Rabbi Nachman was very into that. And, we've learned that out many times in lesson 36. Rabbi Nachman talks about the fact that brings in the Gemara and Sanhedrin and says everybody has to look at the world as if it's created only for him. Therefore, when he sees brokenness in the world, he has to be obligated to fix it. But he doesn't say there's all truths are equal. It just says my truth and this person's truth is meaning is sort of like my responsibility in terms of my special responsibility, not my halachic responsibility, my special path is either special path, my special creative juices. That's for sure everybody agrees with. But when I start saying, listen, I have another truth, there's another actual way of, set of principles out there, that's when we start getting to avodah zarah. And that's the real argument. The argument is like the ancients believe there are many different gods, meaning there's many different truths out there. And the Rambam is organizing what's the defining principle of Torah is what we're learning right now. Meaning there is only one creator, and everything else other than that creator is, dare I say, expendable to the creation, so to speak. I mean, the creation is even expendable because the only thing that will always exist is God. And all things are the result of His decision to cause those things to exist. Right? And not that He caused it to exist. That's what the deists, the founding fathers of America were deists, right? They believe the clockmaker concept that God created the universe and kind of like left a bunch of moral principles and doesn't interact anymore, right? Unless there's a miracle or something like that, right? Where Rambam says, no, this is present tense for a reason, right? In the Hebrew is very, it's not necessarily past tense, but in present tense as well, that He is causing all things to be. Right, and if you would pull away His causation, those things would not. Those things would cease to exist, including everybody on this class. Right, it's only because He's causing us to exist that we exist, and that's a fundamental principle in Torah. It's a fundamental principle in Judaism that the end of the day, our search for truth has to start with the Creator of the universe. Has to start with the Creator of the universe. It doesn't even start with us. That all of creation is dependent on the Creator's will to cause it to exist every moment. And which is why the Rambam puts these in these three halachot, in three beginning instructions here. These principles, that first you have a being, right, that is the first being. There's the first cause. I like to call it the first cause, right? Because creation is a set of causes, right? But at the end of the day, what's the principle? The principle is really, at the end of the day, you always get back to one cause. It's logically speaking, avodah zarah, idol worship makes no sense, right? People, and even atheism makes no sense. It's illogical, it's irrational to be an atheist. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about being anti-religious. It's irrational to say there's no first cause. Because in a logical sense, all causes must be reduced back to a single principle, single cause, a single one push that caused it to happen. Whether we believe the Big Bang or not is meaningless, right? We believe that the world is only 6,057, 82 years old, right? Plus 6 days, which I believe we all believe in, right? So the idea, if you believe in that, the Big Bang doesn't make much sense, right? What the Big Bang does in the concept, though, or the concept is there's all, even scientists say it was all reduced to the first cause. So, built into rationality, logic is this one cause that causes all things, that caused all things to be. And since all causes came from that cause, that's really the real cause behind everything else. That's one way of looking at it. But the real deeper way of looking at it, the monotheistic way of looking at it, is the cause which is causing all things to be. Cause which is causing all things. We're about to see that. It gets more clear. But the reason why he sets this up into three different logical steps. There's a cause that's causing all things to be. Then saying that this cause is not like other causes, because if we would not have this cause, none of us would be here. But if none of us would be here, this cause would still be here. That's the three sets of rules we're going on. That's monotheism, beginning of monotheism in a nutshell, which Rambam does beautifully here. Then he quotes Yirmiyahu. The prophet says, Hashem Elohim Emet. And now he says, it's not the first cause anymore, right? It's now called God. Hashem is the true God. Hu levadoya emet ve'ein ala acher emet ka'amitato. He alone is truth, and there is no other truth like his truth. V'hu shaTorah omer. And just like the Torah says in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, Ein od milvado. Ein od milvado. There's nothing but him. There's nothing other than him. There's nobody else other than him. There's nothing. He's it. He alone exists. Klomer ein sham matsui emet milvado k'moto. That's to say, there is no true being. There's no true being. There's no true existence, except for him, like him. Dig deeper into this. In Chassidus is there is nothing but him. In truth, there's nothing but him. There's no other true reality other than him. And that's why we understand. Chabad Chassidus does a really nice job at this. But the 613 precepts is the Ratzon Hashem. It's the will of the Creator, and when we plug into that will, we plug into Him. The will and Him. We're going to get to that soon. The Rambam does go into this. That the will, the Creator's will, is kilu, like the Creator Himself, because we can't actually access nothingness, which is really oneness. Oneness, when something's just one, there's nothing else. So we wouldn't be able to experience that. But the will that He puts in the world, His actions, His instructions that we carry out, that He gives us to carry out, is the closest thing we have to having interaction with Him. When I pray, when I pray only to the Creator of the universe, I say, Shem, please help me with this, help me with this. That's it. There's nothing like that, because I'm reducing all my focus to the one prime mover of all things. All things. And that's why He's the only real truth out there. Because all the truth, and there's a shred of truth in it, is based on Him, on His truth, on His will. The creation, you think of will as in a way which is some sort of current flowing through, which is why wisdom is always seen as a nachal, a river flowing through that we need to drink from or bathe in or be part of. It's the same idea. The current of wisdom, of God's wisdom, is a current that flows through the universe that we have to tap into. That's what's going on, right? That's the real truth. It's an underlying principle. All these underlying principles of creation are wrapped up in the Torah, the blueprint of creation. That's Hashem's will. That's building. That's behind the creation of itself. And although, where's the sheker in creation? Where's the false? It's in our eyes. So Rabbin teaches that everything's going through our eyes. Well, I can look at the world through the world of Dimion, through illusions that we've talked about. We've talked about modern psychology, seeing things as cognitive biases, or distortions, or fused cognitivity. Of course, the sheker isn't the world itself. The sheker is how I take my ego and put it onto the world the way I want the world to be. But that's not necessarily the truth. Because the only real truth is what Hashem wants the world to be. So halacha hey, there's a little hey here. Fifth halacha. Hamotsui hazeh hu elokei haolam adon ka'aretz. This being, this existence, this truth, this reality is the world, God of the world, master of all the land. Who? And here he goes. That's not past tense anymore. Who? Hamanhig, Hagagal, B'koach she'en lo ketz v'tachlit. He is the he's the guiding force. He's the guide. He's the pusher, the mover of the Galgal of the universe. In force that has no end and no limit. Everything we see, the Earth, the planets. You'll see why I'm saying this, because the Rambam goes into the Earth being the center of the universe, the planets and the stars and the sun and the moon moving around us. Because our perspective, which is how the Torah is written from human's perspective, is that everything is moving around the Earth, right? That's what it looks like. How it looks like is in halacha how it is, and everything's being moved. The Galgal, the universe, the whole sphere of creation that exists, plus everything we're experiencing all the time, the seasons, the plants growing, everything is being guided and pushed and moved with no end to this, no limit to any of his force to do this. With that he does it. And a force that has no limit. Shagagal sovev tamid, and the Galgal, the universe, is constantly in motion around us, circling around us. V'efshali is so she is sov below misabev. It's impossible. This is mamash brute logic. Anybody comes to you and says, "I don't believe in God," this is a lot. Just ask them about this thing. It's impossible that it moves. It surrounds us, moving, it revolves around us. From our possible, all this is moving without any force moving it. Impossible. But by physics, it's impossible. It has to be moving by. It's saying it's been causing this to move. And what is this? Who is this? Who Baruch Hu? This is Hamisabev Oto below Yad below Guf. He's doing this. Is blessed. This is him. Blessed be he. Who's causing the universe to revolve without any hand, without any body. Which is why the Torah always pushes us to look at the heavens to get a feeling of the Creator, to understand how powerful. We see this in the Mishnah, in Brachot early on. The idea of Techelet is to remind us to look at the heavens, because in the heavens, that blue of the sky is about the kingship of the Creator. It's the Creator of the universe. It's endless. That the sky seems endless in that time of day when it's just blue and there's no clouds. It just keeps on going on. And that's the infinity of the Creator. And so when we go look at the night sky, we see everything moving around us. In the daytime, the sun's moving across, and it seems to understand that the Creator of the universe is really moving that like nothing, as if like nothing. There's nothing stopping him, just constantly moving, and that he, it just gives you an understanding how you take a step back and like. That's the Creator, and He created me, and He created you, and He created everybody else. That once we start thinking in those terms, you start realizing, wow, I have to watch how I act. I have to actually, and I have to go out of my way to know, and I get to know the Creator. The Rambam is going to use this as a lifting off point now, to really connect to Him. V'diat davar zeh mitzvah aseh. And here's the first mitzvah aseh, right? The first positive commandment. He's going to discuss now. As it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, v'chol ma'aleh al dato sheyesh sham Elokai acher chutz mizeh over below ta'aseh. Shneimar, lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al pnai. There shouldn't be for you other gods before me. Kofir be'ikar, an atheist. Kofir be'ikar is an atheist. Shezahu ikar agadol shakol telibo. And this also applies to Kofir Iker, and because he's denying this great principle, which everything else rests upon. Once again, I said this before, and I said that this is the reason why Rambam starts off the Mishnah Torah, and this is all of the Torah, all monotheism, which is many, in terms, I think the biggest class of prohibitions in the Torah are prohibitions really centered around Avodah Zarah, idol worship, or magic, or any sorts of those things. You need to add that together. It's a big single. I think it's the largest single group out there of prohibitions, and because this principle that we're dealing with is so important, and it says everything else depends on it. Everything stands on this principle. Like I was saying, morality, modern morality depends. We see when we take God out of the picture, everything falls apart. I can allow other truths into my life, other sets of moral principles, or no moral principle is wrong. You can have conflicting moral principles, right? Left, just inject some, modern politics into it, right? The same people that are anti or pro-abortion, right, are also pro that. Oftentimes pro government forcing vaccinations on people. So on one hand, they say, right, on one hand, they say the government should not tell a woman what to do. It's her body. On the other hand, they say the government has every right to force, to be in control of someone's body. And so you can only get to that point when I take an underlying, take the underlying foundation of morality, which is believing in one cause, one God, one set of moral principles out of thought process. That's when you get to nihilism. Like it's a nihilism where I take God out of the picture. So once again, the first mitzvah he talks about is based now as the culmination of what we've been talking about. It's a lifting off point for other parts of the Torah, Foundations of Torah. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. Right? I am Hashem, your God. And this is a principle that one has, as I said, implications on a large level of morality out there. Large morality. And we're going to stop here today, and next week we'll continue on. I think this is very important. It leads us to lots of other different ideas, which is why it's important to learn your Torah out. But once I'm going to wrap up actually real quick, is we have a set of logical principles. There's one being. This being caused all things to come into being itself. All of our existence, creation meaning, is dependent on his existence, but he is not dependent on our existence. Okay, he's the cause, and he was the cause. He is the cause, and will be the cause of all creation. And the fourth, and that leads us to the fourth principle, the fourth halacha, which is our truth is not like his truth. He's the only real truth out there, and that really means anything that he is teaching us to do is part of that truth. I mean, I can't exist in the level of one, but I can exist. I can connect myself to his truth, to his will. We'll get to we'll understand what the will is, obviously, as we go along, and we'll get there. But I believe one of the more powerful points one can use in modern atheists or agnostics is really just say, listen, like we won't get into religion now, but he says in halacha hey, in the fifth halacha, that essentially the universe itself, it's this being, this creator, this prime cause that is moving everything around us. All the entire universe is in a constant state of movement with no end, and you can't say that something can move without something causing it to move. And once again, we'll finish with Anochi. And this all leads us to Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. That is the first mitzvah. And the reason why it is incumbent on believing this mitzvah is not only because Hashem told us to believe this mitzvah, we actually have to do it for that reason, but the underlying principles, if we take this mitzvah out of things, we lose everything else. The lack of a causal being, a prime cause, which means you lack truth, which we just set up there. He's the only real truth. That means his morality is the only truth. And once we take that out of there, we have what we have today is more relativism with transgenderism, pro-killing babies in the womb. We have homosexuality. We have all sorts of stuff that the Western world is going towards because they took one truth, one God out of it. You take God as one. We'll get into what, we can use the word God, and we can also call God power, right? There's only one real true power in the universe. Elokim means is plural for powers. And the Nefesh Chaim, Rav Chaim Volozhin says that Elokim means repository of all the powers in the universe. That Hashem really, in one way, or the word Elokim just means that's talking about God all causes in the universe are really just traced back to one cause, Hashem. That's Elohim, right? The other gods, it says other Elohim Aharim means that I believe there's other causes out there other than the prime cause, and that's Avodah Zarah. So it doesn't matter if I call it God, or if I call it Wall Street, or if I call it the White House, or I call it evolution. It doesn't matter. If I take it out of God being the cause, it's a Avodah Zarah. Anyway, we should have a great week, great Shabbat, and we'll come back to this next week. Unfortunately, today my car was having issues. So in 2 weeks we'll be back. Oh, wait a second. Maybe we'll try to fit in one Tuesday before the Masons go. If not, we'll do everything by virtual. Okay, everybody?
Hey, thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Like it. Talk to you guys.
Bye.
Well.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Hello.